Hello everyone, my name is Scott Davenport and welcome to another installment of Perfect Inspiration. My sincere thanks to On1 Software for inviting me back. It's a real privilege to be part of this series and it's a lot of fun. I want to share a photographic subject I'm very passionate about, bodies of water. I've lived near an ocean my entire life. I grew up walking the beaches, watching the tides ebb and flow, connecting with the rhythm of the ocean. And when I travel or I'm taking pictures locally, I tend to seek out locations that include water, a lake, a river, a waterfall, a fountain, a reflection in a puddle after a good rain. I'm more conscious of it now, and I realize the photos that I connect with most, both my own and other photographers, have some element of water in them. Today I'll show you several photos from La Jolla, a stretch of San Diego's rocky coastline, and I'll blend and stylize them into a final image using several tools in Perfect Photo Suite 8. So let's get started. Here in Aperture, and I have many photos taken across the span of 30 minutes or so. I spent about 15 minutes watching the waves before I started taking any photos, finding the rhythm and how they were crashing over this large rock. I felt like Louis Degas and Papillon looking for the seventh wave, but I wanted to capture the moment just as the wave crashed over the rock and the tendrils of water spilled over the side. I whittled down the frames to 5 that I want to blend. I really like the waves in the background of this first shot and the swirling water in the foreground on the second. And the remaining 3 will fill in that cascading water down the side of the rock. With a little blending work, these will fuse together nicely. I'll select all the photos and send them to Perfect Layers. I do this so often, I've defined a hotkey, Shift-L, to launch layers. Alright, here we are in Perfect Layers, and let's get to blending these first 2 images to address the foreground and background. The top layer looks really good, nice pleasing waves in the background, and the rock is sharp. The layer beneath has this inviting, swirling water. So with the top layer selected, I'll grab the masking bug from the tool well, the gradient shape is fine, and click on the image to place the bug. We rotate this around with the double-headed arrow so we're masking out the lower segment of the photo. Now I'll adjust the feathering and just position the blend to make everything just so. The dotted lines above and below the center adjust the feather, how smooth or how harsh the transition of the mask will be. And of course the circle in the center sets the position of the bug. Here I want the center of the transition just below the main subject, this large rock, and a small feather. Let me check how that looks by toggling on and off the upper layer. Good. With that blend done, I'll merge the top layer down. On to the main event, the cascading water. The next layer down has a lot of what I'm after, the wave crashing over the rock, and there's some interesting action in the lower right corner too. For this mask, I'll use the masking brush and drop the opacity of the brush to around 80%. Let me try the perfect brush here to help keep the strokes just on the rock. Nope, this is too restrictive. Let me turn that off and start painting away the top layer, and I'll check the progress here as I go. A couple of extra clicks. Alright, that's looking nice. Now notice there's a change in the color cast on the rock. Although it's an overcast day, light is always changing, waves throw different amounts of mist in the air, an outdoor scene is never static. So I'm painting through the rest of the rock to keep a consistent color through the main subject. Here I will use the perfect brush to make sure I stay only on the rock. I'm going to bump the opacity up to 100% also. And let me set the mask overlay to red so I can see exactly what I'm masking out. When I'm masking along edges, I use a series of single clicks with the perfect brush. This helps avoid dragging the crosshairs to an edge or across an edge and masking into an area I don't intend to. When the boundaries are finished, turn off the perfect brush so masking is faster, and then sweep through the interior of the area. Alright, this is coming along. Now for a little more drama in this lower right corner. I'll increase the brush size using the right bracket key, lower the opacity a touch, and start painting through these lower rocks to pick up more of the wave action. As I go, I'm going to reduce the opacity for a gentler blend at the transition points. I also toggle on and off the top layer a bunch of times, letting the changes in the layers catch my eyes. A few more tweaks and pulling in more of this rush of the water here, and a little more of this crashing wave. Okay, I'm happy with that, so I'll merge this layer down. And on to the next layer, and I have a problem. I bumped my tripod. I know, big faux pas. But notice as I toggle on and off the upper layer, the rock is shifting. So I need to align the layers before I continue blending. Here's how I like to do this. First, lower the opacity of the top layer to around 50% or so both layers are visible. Second, zoom into 100% and find a good alignment point, something with a sharp edge, like the edge of this rock. Third, click the transform tool in the tool wheel and drag the top layer around until things line up. Check the alignment by toggling on and off the top layer several times. As I do this, I'm focusing on the edges of the rock. There will be slight differences in tone, and that's okay. I'll mask those areas in a moment. Still have a little shift here, 1 or 2 nudges more. There we go. I'll raise the opacity of the top layer back to 100%, and now I can proceed with masking in more of the cascading water. All right, back to the masking brush. Oh, I forgot to apply the transform. Well, thank you, Perfect Photo Suite. I'll start with about 50% opacity, and with the top layer selected, start painting away more of the rock to reveal the water. And I think you get the idea from here. It's a cycle of paint out to reveal the layer beneath, toggle on and off the top layer to check the blend, and repeat until you're happy with the result. I use the 50% opacity so the blend is smooth, and for the areas I want to reveal more, like the white water, I paint those out multiple times. Each brush stroke reveals more of the layer beneath it. They're additive. So when the masking for that layer is complete, merge it down. Now ideally you do these masks zoomed in at 100%. With just this left half of the rock, I'll zoom in a little closer here. And starting with the water line, painting over the whites a few times so they're very prominent. And I think I'll bump the strength of the mask even further to bring those water fingers out more. Also, notice the change in the tone of the rock again. With the water finished up, I'll sweep through most of the rock to smooth out the tone. And for those edges, back to the perfect brush. Again, along the edges, I'll use single clicks for the mask. And to move the focus of the navigator while you're masking, hold down the space bar. The cursor becomes the hand, like the grab tool, and you can slide the canvas around to reposition things. Now I can finish masking the rest of this rock, and there we go. Okay, with the masking done, this is already a much more dynamic scene. Now it's time for a little stylizing and perfect effects. I'll start with my all-time favorite filter, Dynamic Contrast. I want the rock in the foreground and all of those fingers of water to really pop, but I want the waves in the background to remain softer. So I'll play with the sliders here, and the large and medium sliders will be good for the rock and some of the waves in the foreground. Now for these slivers of white water, the small sliders are really going to bring those out. And I'm really just, moving things up and down, watching how the image changes, and about here is looking nice. The cascade of water is really popping off the screen, and there's good detail in the swirling waves in the front. I do need to keep watching the waves in the background. I want to keep those soft, keep them in the distance. So any effect can be selectively painted in and out of the image, and at any opacity of your choosing. I'll grab the masking brush, use a low opacity and a soft feather, and paint away the dynamic contrast effect from the background. And you can see in the filter stack where the effect has been painted away. For this image, that's the only effect I want to apply. I really like what I have here, so let me click Apply and go back to Layers. The last step is to make this black and white. I like the soft blues of the waves, but there's really not a lot of color going on in the scene. and I think this will really look nice in black and white. So I'll launch this into perfect black and white. And the beauty of the layered workflow is I'll still have the color version in layers if I decide I want to go back. Now, where dynamic contrast is my go-to effect filter, in perfect black and white, my go-to preset is Ansel in the Valley. For landscape photos, this preset gets me 80% of the way to a final image right off the bat. I'll grab it from my Favorites tab, and I'll collapse the preset browser so I have more real estate on the screen, and this is already looking awesome. The first tweak I'll make is turning off the film grain. That's just a personal preference. I don't typically like film grain. Let's see, next I'll add a vignette. When adding a vignette, I like to see where it's being applied, and the sliders in the vignette pane give you great control for this. I'm going to lower the feather to 0% so I can already see where the edges are, and I'll adjust the size so only the corners of the photo are being treated with the vignette. And for this photo, I'm going to lower the brightness a little more and then crank the feather back up to 100% for a nice soft fade. Now some sharpening. I'll use the high pass sharpening to make that water very, very crisp. And ooh, that's a little too crisp. Let's lower the amount some. There. Before I finish up, I like to check for clipping. So in the View menu, choose Show Clipping. Here, some of my whites are clipped. For screen output, I wouldn't worry about this. However, I like this picture a lot, and I will likely print it, so I don't want any clipping. I can try the brightness and white sliders in the tone pane to eliminate the clipping, and that's not really working. But while I'm here, let me bump the blacks up just a touch. Now, since the clipping is very slight here, I'll try the tone curve. I'm going to click once on the point in the upper right of the graph, and yeah, look at that, the clipping is gone. Notice the in and out values have slightly changed. Let me show you that again, it's very subtle. Reset the tone curve, and then a single click on this point. Yep, there we go. It's a neat little trick when the clipping is mild. All right, I think I'm done with the stylizing. Let's see, Command P on a Mac or Control P on the PC, and you can see the before and after. Yep, very nice. You click Apply, send this back to Layers for the final touch-ups. All right, the home stretch now. This has probably been bothering you the entire video. The horizon is crooked. Well, I'm going to fix that now. Click the Transform tool, and we can adjust the rotation. I'm just going to type the value in here because it's very mild. Let me try -2. A little too much. -1. All right, that's good. Now the rotation reveals some blank canvas edges. Some of this came from the repositioning when we aligned layers, and some of this just from the rotation. But a crop will clean this up. Oh, I gotta apply the transform first. I keep forgetting that. All right, now for the crop. Drag this across the image, lopping off the blank areas, and we'll apply. Okay, let's take a look at where we started with the unstylized image and where we are now. Before and after. All right, well there you have it. A beautiful seascape, a moment frozen in time. It evokes the mood and the feeling I had while I was at the ocean that day. It was several tools to make this image, but the modular nature of the photo suite made this easier and faster to get to the end result. I hope this video gives you a dose of inspiration for your next photographic adventure. My name is Scott Davenport. You can visit me at scottdavenportphoto.com. And again, thank you for watching Perfect Inspiration, and thanks to On1 for having me.